Well, Kyle, we're into Shadowbringers and we've been here for a bit. I feel like we missed something.
Must not been important.
That's right, it's the return of the Wall of Dungeons, this time for the Stormblood MSQ dungeons, which is this is where we have to remind you, it happens every time. This is MSQ only. We're not doing optional dungeons, and yes, we consider things you need to do for Ether Currents optional. As a meme though, feel free to below when you hear this comment that, oh my god, you skipped the obviously optional dungeon of your choice. It's a choose your own adventure, dear commenters. And if you've never watched one of these before, typically we consider the music, the vibes, and the bosses. Music is obvious, bosses is obvious. You might be thinking, what are the vibes? What does the dungeon look like? What is it trying to get across? What's the whole a vibe of the dungeon? Kyle, I want to support you, bro.
I want to support you, bro.
I love it when my bro supports me.
But we have so much broness, we need additional support.
Our bromance requires all the support. Hey, do you like what we do? Do you like these longer form videos that we think of as essentially documentaries? Because boy, does it take us a long time to make it. You should thank our patrons because they are supporting us over on our Patreon, which you can get to by going to supportourbromance.com. That just forwards directly to our Patreon. It'll take you there. And you can decide to support Kyle and my bromance so that we can keep broing out in Adobe Premiere every week.
And you get a podcast.
So you get access to the members-only Discord channels. Supportourbromance.com.
Supportourbromance.com.
All right, so let's get to it. Going in order that you play through these dungeons in the MSQ, which means we need to start with the Sirensong Sea.
A nice excuse for a dungeon, sailing to Kugane. And you come across ghost shipwrecks? That's pretty awesome.
I adore this dungeon. It's a darling. I love how it looks. The music is fantastic. The music kind of progresses. It starts on just full on horror. You've got single minor piano chords, ascending strings, and then the church bells start. And you're like, okay,
yeah.
It's horror, but it's action horror. We're off on an adventure through something that's kind of spooky.
I honestly thought that this was setting a tone for all of Stormblood, that we were going to be fighting more ghosts and stuff. But it's just an aside. It's just like a mass of boats that happen to be between continents.
There's just so much variety in Final Fantasy XIV. It's great. If something imagine if this didn't land for you. It's cool. Don't worry about it. We're gonna change things up quite a bit for the next one.
Gonna be something else. Don't think about it too much. Now the first boss, Alugot, has a great look. The governor, don't know why it's called the governor, but great little ghost model, lanky boy, doing some spell effects.
I love the effect when he makes a bunch of small versions of him and then they lower and become these goopy, smoky puddles.
Yeah.
Inky is how it looks, like ink and water. That's kind of what the effect is going on here, which I really enjoy. And I know you do too, because that's how they did the creepy clouds in Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah.
And then we have, I call this boss L'Oreal. I don't remember. I don't know how to actually pronounce it. Lorelei, I believe.
A great model. Honestly, I'm gonna give him props for just not reusing these really great models frequently. This is a beautiful boss.
This shares with the jellyfish ladies we meet much later on in Stormblood, right? But yeah, this model does get reused a few times, but not a ton. I think this is the first time we see this. It definitely sticks out in my brain. I just remember being excited, being oh, it's called the Sirensong Sea, and we actually get to fight a siren.
And there's a nice little tonal bit where you kind of go through a red castle with a double shields, very Dark Souls guy comes up. The rain is going at it. It's not quite the huge color shift or terrain shift we see in some dungeons, but the fact that they turn on the rain later is just great. So I don't even know where to begin to place this, because I want to just throw it straight in epic, because the music is solid. Love it. The theme, Shipwreck Cove, solid. The bosses are unique at this point in the game.
Okay, so you want to go right for okay, so you threw this in epic. I threw it in banger is where I started it with.
Of the theme that it's capturing, it does it really well. So I think you're right. Yes. Banger it is.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it doesn't quite reach theme park attraction, the portal scene from Endgame levels of over the top, make the crowd want to cheer.
Yeah.
But it's just good. It's just good the whole time. The whole thing is just, it nails exactly what it sets out to do.
For what it is, it does what it means to do. Hell yeah. Let's start. We'll start kind of mid-banger for now, just so we have room to grow.
Bardam's Mettle is up next. Good old Bardam's Mettle. Well, to start things off, I'd like to talk about the music.
Yeah.
Which is fan-freaking-tastic. I've never told you this, but I love pan flute.
Really?
I get so excited about pan flute. I love the way pan flutes sound.
Oh.
And it's only at least 65% because of the song from Living with the Land at Epcot. I legitimately have a thing for the pan flute. I really like the way pan flutes sound. This is classic pan flute, which leads right into the vibes too. I really, really like the way Bardam's Mettle looks, and for me, I think it's like a more subtle part of visuals that I'm passionate about because it's just pretty. It's like a place I would want to go for a hike or rent a cabin. Like, it's a nice mountain. It's got the Tibetan prayer flags, which I am an absolute sucker for. There's a reason anything vaguely adventurous overuses the living crap out of Tibetan prayer flags.
Yeah.
They're pretty. They give you a pop of color. They sell depth, because if you have them running in like diagonal, like one strand is closer to the character and one is farther off in the distance, nothing sells distance better. It's like changing the size of your bird brush in Photoshop when you're painting a landscape.
It's the best part of Batman Begins.
Ooh. I was thinking Uncharted 2, but
yeah, Uncharted, absolutely.
Hey. Yeah, or
Adventure.
waiting in line for Everest at Animal Kingdom, which is another.
You're making a lot of comparisons to Disney, though. This is a ride, and you're going through the theming, and the trash is the line, and the bosses are the animatronics.
The bosses are also trash.
Are you saying the bosses are trash here?
I love the way this looks. I love the way it sounds. I never want to run this dungeon again.
Okay. Yeah. I agree. No, I do. There's a part of me that respects the design exploration of making a boss that is just mechanics. And even the sort of adds our mechanics exploration of the first giant wildebeest thing. That was interesting. And it kind of tied into like when we did the Monster Hunter event later on, which was kind of cute. It's such a beautiful environment. It really is. But that middle mechanics boss, I don't know if I'm just violent and I need to hit something, but it just doesn't do it for me on multiple playthroughs.
I get distracted because I'm bored in between the mechanics. It's Bardam. It's actually Bardam of the namesake of the dungeon.
Bardam of the Mettle, yeah.
Yeah, I always fail at least one phase of this every time it comes up in roulette, and it comes up all the time in roulette, unfortunately. But you're just standing there for so long that I glance over at my second monitor. I'm like, hey, what's going on Twitter? And then I get hit by something. Like, there's just moments of complete detachment from what's happening around. And yeah, maybe it's character fault. Maybe this is really more about me, Kyle, than it is about this dungeon. Maybe I just have a problem with patience, which no one has ever told me before as an older brother. But I'm not going to look inward today and just say that I think Bardam's Mettle was the definition of could be cooler.
Oh, man.
It has promise, and it doesn't make good on the promise.
I like the Yole. I like the rock, ROC, like big birds are very cool.
I'm glad that you spelt that.
Well, yeah, people get confused.
I know what you're talking about now. Yes, but you needed to spell it. You needed to spell it.
That middle boss is just kind of a downer, and maybe there's like some stream anxiety with it because it was kind of a laugh when we were trying to stumble through it for the first time. But on subsequent playthroughs, I can confirm that it's not my favorite. I really, really like the aesthetic though, and fighting the giant rock head things is perfectly fine. You make your way up that trench where you're fighting like robots or something, and there's giant boulders going by. There is so much good about this. But it's also a great one to make an example of and say, this is our poster child, could be cooler. It's a great aesthetic. but it just trips.
Yeah. No, I dig that final boss fight well enough. It's just getting there feels a little chore-like is all. Oh, dude, the glowing cave paintings is wonderful. The look of this dungeon is so good. I love it. It's fantastic.
It's a beautiful vibe, but the bosses fail. The music doesn't really do it for me, but sounds like it did it for you. I think we've got a nice little home for it here and could be cooler.
Okay. For me, I'm gonna TLDR this and say it's all Bardam's fault. I dislike that boss fight so much. It drags this entire dungeon down for me.
Yep. I agree. Do it. Right there.
Cut. Print. Sorry, Bardam's Mettle.
Sorry, Bardam.
We now have to talk about Doma Castle, which, not to give the goose away, even though I'm going to, is still one of my all-time favorite dungeons. Of everything we've done so far, Doma Castle rules. I
want to lead with the most unexpected music in the game so far.
Oh, God, yes, dude. We try really hard not to talk about the story outside. We're trying to meet the dungeon on its own terms. But I have to make mention of the first time we ran this, because imagine the crescendo of Stormblood, be a little harsh here, finally getting interesting.
You brought the factions together. It's a classic RPG archetype. You had to visit all these places, make friends with all these places, and then you finally get to the moment where it all comes together.
Yes, but you didn't have the Normandy, so it wasn't nearly as cool as how Mass Effect 2 does it. My point being, I'm so hyped at this point, because I'm like, yeah, all right, Stormblood's getting good. No more talking to Hancock. Let's go. And that music starts playing, and I just go, Nani?
It sells that the castle is invaded by robots, because it kind of has a techno feel.
I don't even know what this is. Is it synth? Is it just a keyboard with a weird filter?
Right, you would expect something matching the more traditional atmosphere and castle that we're running, but instead they add this really foreign sound to it. You know, if we're being kind of English teacher about it, kind of puts you in the mind of like it's being invaded, it's being overtaken, there's things that don't belong here, things that are out of its element have oppressed this place. But it's so jolly that you don't really make that through line. You just kind of groove on it.
I don't know where to begin talking about vibes on this. I do not know where to begin, because this is just one of the most gorgeous set pieces in the game, especially when you get into the interior of the castle.
Yeah.
The outside has its charms too. As someone who had to do a lot of landscape painting in college, I went to art school. The way they sell, like the hot hit of the sun on those red tile roofs, it's just like, I've seen it. I've seen that. They nail it. It is a beautiful palette going on in Doma Castle. And then you get inside. Oh, you get inside, and the it's so ornate, and it's so well executed, and you can go all the way back to when we actually streamed this, and I made our group stop dead in their tracks and look at the wall, and I was like, Kyle, they're doing material differences, which, as much as I love the way other games, World of Warcraft, looks, WoW doesn't do that, which is fine and it works in its own way. But the way that they sell, this is wood, that is metal, this is carpet, and all of the color differentiations, and they actually play with the way that the color of light influences the color of an object. It's wonderful. This place is so great. At the time of recording this, people are freaking out about the how that level in the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, there's a mundane scene in Amsterdam. Everyone's freaking out about that scene. It looks gorgeous. And I love the conversations being had around it, because we're all realizing we don't really see that much effort put into realistic depictions of things we can go and see in our real world. And that's what's going on here with Doma Castle. Even though it is larger than life, this is real Chinese influence architecture that you can go see. All of it is informed by real architecture that does exist right now in the real world. But the way they pull it off here, it's great. I love it.
And then to add in the destruction of the castle on top, but the Garleans destroying something beautiful, it makes you want to beat up the people inside. And you get to fight some pretty cool stuff. The Magitech rear guard is a really little fun dance you get to do. The Magitech Hexadrone, doubling down on the robots, but still, another really fun fight. And then you fight Warhammer on your way out.
No, man, this is the cherry on top of what is a perfect dungeon, because you, as someone who has been streaming Final Fantasy XIV for a year, get to murder the that keeps giving us copyright strikes.
Oh, you finally get rid of Name Day and his damn song, which we will not play because it's copyrighted.
Every time that damn Realm Reborn track play, or is it a 1.0?
No, yeah,
I think it's a 1.0 track.
It might be a 1.0, yeah.
We've only referred to him as Name Day, because he's always like, oh, my name days come at once.
Hypertuned Name Day comes out fully messed up.
I don't love his model. Some of the Garlean monstrosity stuff just like leans a little too far into like cartoon. Like it looks like Street Shark. It's a little large and clunky, like it's aged for like 7 to 12.
I can see
like
that. Yeah.
Like it's just a little too. It's too Saturday morning cartoon for me. It's not my favorite thing in the world.
You got to be teen for teen.
I think this fight's great though. I really want to go to bat for this fight. I think it is a diet raid fight.
I agree.
There's so many different mechanics. There's parts where players need to run out because they get marked. There's distance-based explosions, which is there a term for that? You know what I'm talking about? Where you get the reticule on the ground with the radiating out, like warning, the further you get away from this, the less damage you're going to take. I don't know what the technical term is for that mechanic.
I'm sure there is.
Let us know in the comments below. And then on top of that, you have the avoid the buzzsaws, and the way that this fight then remixes that and stacks them all on top of each other as the fight progresses. I think it's fantastic. This is like exactly what I want from a dungeon boss fight. On the edge of raid complexity. It's fun. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised with where I want to put Doma Castle.
Where do you want to put it?
Epic. Straight into epic.
Let's make it the poster child there. Right then.
All right.
Right there in the middle. Let's do it. Doma Castle, our first epic of Stormblood.
It was literally the point where I started to think, ooh, Stormblood might be good.
It's the part that got me interested in doing the raid content and seeing it through to the difficulty, because it started expressing art, music, and use of space in the boss battles.
Castrum Abania time. It's okay.
I have mixed feelings.
I don't. I think it's just perfectly fine. I think Castrum Abania, it's a dungeon. It doesn't inspire strong feelings in either direction for me. I think the music, which I always read as Alien Anus, is fairly standard. This is epic fare. It's very percussive. There's a lot of dum dum dum, like that kind of a thing going on. But it doesn't dip close enough to Terminator 2 to make me really happy. That's like, to me, top tier percussive music.
Okay, yeah. High bar to set.
There's a lot of music in Final Fantasy XIV. I feel like I can be nitpicky. There's some truly amazing scores in this game. The vibes are, I hope you like Garlia. Or have you ever thought to yourself, what would it be like to dungeon through a motherboard?
I like the mad science vibe a lot, though. Now you've got the kind of Street Sharks idea in my head, and certainly really, really feeling that on the first boss.
Then we've got Sledge the Hammerhead.
When the Magna Rotor came out, I went, holy crap, that's messed up. This is going to be awesome. But it's actually a model from other Final Fantasies. So I feel like we never explored like how horrible this like poured into molded motorcycle man is. People pass it off like, it's just from other fantasies. Don't think about it. It's a great reference. I'm like, no. Like the Garleans melted a dude and made him into a motorcycle. That is so messed up. That is so cool.
Really? Because I think it's jawsome.
It's very particularly with like the exhaust out the back. Yeah, it's pretty jawsome. I thought they were kind of interesting because I wanted to explore that mad scientist vibe. Kind of want to skip straight to Inferno because he had sort of a Bane thing going on, and I like that.
As much as I don't like the Magna Rotor look, that's how much I love Inferno's look. Inferno, I think, is a top tier monster model.
He's very practical effects looking, and I love his chemical bath that he gets to get big hands, and the mad scientist kind of talking over it, the various canisters coming in. He hits pretty hard too, so it was pretty fun on minimum eye level to fight him. We actually died.
Yeah, we did. It's a good avoid the stuff dance with a classic kill the ads before they make it to the boss phase, which, again, I'm a bit of a sucker for.
It's a great mechanic. I thought it was a great tension for the final boss here. There's a reason why I want to put this whole thing in the trash, though, and it's one mechanic. 24? Number 24?
I just call it the Kyle monster because it's just this extremely lanky thing that looks like it appreciates a good vest.
I know a lot of people are going to call me a huge noob and that I don't understand mechanics and blah, blah, blah. Like, say what you will. When a plus sign or minus sign appears in this game, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. Am I making a best friend? Am I getting away from people? Am I going to be pushed? Am I going to be shoved? Am I going to be pulled? I think he's supposed to be like a big experiment again, too. Like one more Garlean awesome experiment. But again, it's just like, it's shoved aside. It's like, well, the cornucopia of horrible experiments, just tell me about them. When we go to Az's Lost Space, what's the continuum? The fractal continuum. Like there's little signs, and not that I'm expecting the Garleans to like label their mad signs, just be like, for those who pass through, here's why we melted a man. But still.
I think the people that enjoy you and me doing stuff together, a lot of times the thing I see is that they like that we don't always agree. I have nothing to add. I completely agree with you. I have no clue how this fight works, and I don't care enough to learn.
I mean, I've seen it once after that. I said I don't get it. People in the chat were like, yeah, whatever, just kind of deal.
Just kind of just roll it, just face roll it.
Yep.
We made it through without issue on min-eye level, so it's fine. I put Castrum Abania easily in grindable territory. I don't get excited when I see it, but I'm also not bummed when I end up there. I would argue that it is. It simply is.
It simply is.
It simply is, and that's why I think it belongs in grindable.
I agree. A good place for it.
The things that annoy me, you can just ignore those mechanics.
A good place for it.
Yeah. Hey, look at this, man. We got one in each category.
I know, it looks nice.
We did not plan this.
No. Nice baseline.
Also, to note, we do not tell each other where we want to start the bidding at.
That would be cheating.
It's time to go to Alamigo.
Alamigo!
I like to think of this as like the sister dungeon to Doma Castle.
Absolutely.
It's like 2 raid the castle fights. And one kind of happens like middle of Stormblood and one happens at the end of the main MSQ. The music understood the assignment, to use a overused meme.
Yeah.
It is the main Alamigan theme, just turned the F up. It is grandiose. You know that part in whatever your favorite Star Wars movie is, where the Star Wars thing comes in, but it sounds a little different, a little more emboldened, a little more turned up. Yeah, that's what's happening here. And this is exactly when you should use it, because you're taking the fight to Xenos. That's what's happening here. It's fittingly epic. It fits this finale feel of the Alamigo dungeon. But there's a bonus, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
There's more pan flute.
Okay. Yeah, well, we're working together, all the characters. This is the one that feels the most like a Disney ride to me. You're literally passing the animatronics.
Oh, 100%. Oh, there's Johnny Depp in a barrel. Look at that.
We got Yagiri, we got Hien, and we have don't we have all the Alliance leaders too? Like Merweb and all are in there?
Yep.
Yeah, Raban.
Everyone
Pippin.
comes out to kick Xenos in the nads.
It's got a great through line too as you make your way through kind of the market streets. Kind of gives me that like Assassin's Creed vibe. I mean, wider, like all rides are. You got to fit the party and all the mechanics. Guys are jumping over the walls. You feel like you're under attack. I mean, sure, the animatronics are in infinite fights, but you're supposed to keep moving. Like, don't stare at it too long. You'll see the seams. And that's great. The Magitech Scorpion starts things off. It's getting in that mindset of like, the Garlean occupation, they have these big machines, but just a really fun fight. Just a fun dance.
Yeah, I like that you get to fight the mad scientist. You were talking so much about the mad scientist vibes in Castrum Abania. We actually get to fight the mad scientist that stole my haircut.
With a mechanic I've never seen before, where you get knocked out of your body and have to make your way back to your bod on the floor, and it was actually very readable. Like, in that moment, spoiler free, you could kind of suss it out. And I really like that.
Because it draws a line between you and your body. I love this mechanic. This mechanic's cool as hell. And you're going to see the moment where it took me a spell. I started trying to smack the hand, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
It just kind of put it together. But that's a very cool, very memorable mechanic. And then, of course, it ends strong. We fight Xenos, and it's a good fight. There's so many tropes from MMO fights, and there's a lot of them that I really like. They come up time and time again when we do Wall of Dungeons. I love hiding behind the pillars of the columns. I love trying to stop ads before they get to the boss. I love mirror images. And Xenos does that. They show up and they do strikes in your direction. There's so much to avoid. This is a phenomenal dance fight. There's another, it ends with another tried and true trope of MMO fights, which is burn the ads during the force field.
Which is a good one too. It's dramatic.
It is. It's a classic.
Tense.
It's a classic. It's a great fight. I love the Xenos fight.
Yeah.
I've had this a few times since we streamed it, very first time going through the MSQ. Always happy to see this dungeon. Could grind it all day. Where would you place it?
I'm so sad that Mhigo wasn't like a functioning city. Like, it just doesn't get used. It wasn't a capital. There weren't any like shops there. Because this dungeon just sets up those market streets into the big pavilions, into such a rich culture that must have once existed here, visiting these fountains and talking business and
politics.
But it's just a beautiful set piece, and it's not in destruction like Doma Castle is, but that just makes the invasion that much more stark as they're passing everybody.
I put this in banger.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. You can see the seams too much, and the whole thing is visually is a little one note. The whole thing's just tan, and you can really see the seams. I'm with you. You mentioned it, which is everything's too wide. They needed some narrow street corridor moments where there's like really claustrophobic ads. You just see one too many standard Garlean crosshatch fences, and every time I'm like, well, here comes another wave of mobs that are gonna clumsily climb over that not very cool looking fence.
Sure, you're saying it's predictable, and
it is predictable, and I think Doma Castle is I think they land the set piece better than Mhigo.
It is predictable, but I don't really mind that part so much. But I'm willing to go top a banger because I think the music is just kind of, well, it is. And Doma Castle really surprised me.
I really like this track. I really do like this rendition of the Alamigan anthem. So I would go to bat for the music a little bit more, but also I'd like low key just a little bit think the final boss fight of Doma Castle is a little more fun than the Xenos fight. They're real close. I think they're both pretty top tier end of dungeons fights, but I think the mechanics are more interesting in the final Doma Castle fight than it is in the Xenos fight.
That's a really interesting point, or I should say a really interesting opinion. Because I liked it because the majority of the mechanics were being bypassed now because you're more powerful. Originally, a big blast from Xenos knocked you on your butt. Later on, as you meet him, the blast kind of knock you back, but you keep going. So in this fight, there aren't as many mechanics because you've overcome Xenos' mechanics, but that's all story, so throw that out. You're right.
Exactly, yeah. Throw it out. What about the 10th time you do this, Kyle? You're still going to be impressed by that?
You got a point. So I think for different reasons. We're both finding ourselves top a banger. Can I get you to top a banger?
Oh yeah, no.
Okay.
This is. I'm gonna scoop myself right now. I think this is my biggest hair split of this entire conversation we're gonna have.
Top a banger. Then.
I think. Yeah. To me, Doma Castle is like clearly better than Mhigo, but Mhigo is still quite good. But I don't think it's good enough for Epic. Can you tell we play a decent amount of Final Fantasy now, and my tastes are becoming more specified?
To break it down here, this is why I'm really glad we did them in their own expansions, because if we were trying to stare down Copperbell Mines right now, trash wouldn't be deep enough for it. Like we are putting Bardam's Mettle, like a Realm Reborn epic by any means in lame. Could be cooler.
Well, speaking of the trash not being deep enough, let's talk about the drowned city of Skalla.
Oh, yeah, not giving it any. Wow.
This was such a disappointment for me. No,
your disappointment is based on MSQ, though, because our involvement was like hyping it up.
That's fair.
Tancred was swimming really good.
That's fair. Yeah, man, I just don't really like this dungeon.
This might be our greatest disagreement on the Wall of Dungeons.
You're gonna fight me on the drowned city of boring monsters.
I liked that you went to an underground passage, and now you're making your way through the leaky structure of it, come across ancient tomb full of riches, and fight a great big demon dude in the end. You become a ghost for some reason to go over holes, which I can't really speak to. I don't really know what that's about. I thought it was all right. Also, I'm kind of a fan of Kelpies. I think that Kelpie, the boss number 1, horses that drown you are really spooky. This one, not so much, but in general, I like Kelpies. I think Kelpies are a really good mythological monster.
Okay. I will say upon revisiting this and intentionally dissecting it, mostly just actually taking a minute to really focus on the music in Skalla is properly epic.
Yeah.
Well, if we were doing a wall of just music, I would throw this in epic. It's like it starts off with a creepy music box rendition of the Alamigan anthem. It's freaking fantastic, and then it just grows and layers and becomes more complex from there, and it's perfect for this dungeon.
That's why we have the 3-point system to help us out. So, you got a check mark right there in music.
Okay, music is great. One of the just more unique tracks. I do like how the dungeon looks. I will give you that. It looks so much cooler than the actual, I think, adventure you go through it is. That's my issue with this dungeon. It looks awesome. The monsters are forgettable. I honestly don't really even remember these bosses. Like, I remembered most of the boss fights we've talked about so far. For good or for worse. Hi, Bardam.
I feel like reminding you what the bosses look like is just going to make it worse, because the second boss, the old one, is like a big jar man. He literally looks like something that an entire episode of Ancient Aliens would go off on. Which, it's kind of ancient, otherworldly, and we're going to a great king's treasure chamber, the Mad King. You got the treasure room. If we just took all the mobs and trash from a sunken temple of Karn and put them here, if we fought a big mummy at the end, I think you'd be over the moon.
Yeah, you're right. The monsters don't match the dungeon at all.
I can agree.
That's my biggest issue with this.
Yeah.
And so that's why, I think this will be interesting. But to me, this is another poster child for could be cooler. The way I feel about this dungeon is it literally could be cooler.
It could be. Obviously, it could be. There's no argument there. But I think it's highly grindable. There's nothing in here that feels like it's wasting my time. Even turning into a ghost briefly, isn't laborious.
All right, yeah, it's fine. Grindable. Sure, okay. It's fine.
Top of grindable? Can I get you there? Going once?
I do like the tile set better than Castrum Abania. Okay, yeah. No, I'm feeling better about this now. Right. Now that I'm thinking about Castrum Abania. Yeah. Okay, sure.
All right.
Sure. Top of grindable.
I will sleep roughly, but I will sleep.
Were you originally going to fight for Banger?
Yeah, dude, I think the end demon is a really great model.
You were so disappointed in this when we first ran it.
I know I was, because
even on stream, this isn't a private conversation between you and me. You were publicly disappointed in this dungeon.
Dude, I'm with you in that, in principle, I should put it. I'm just
trying to figure out where did you change? Where did the change come from?
Because I ran it multiple times. And that's why I wanted to grind.
Okay, that's a great defense. I'm glad I asked, because I haven't gotten it once in roulette since we ran it. So if you've actually been through it a bunch of times and you're like, yeah, I don't hate this dungeon, that's good to know.
This is the first dungeon I've ever done explorers mode in, to just go walk around it, because I love the treasure walls so much. But yeah, when we got to the final boss and a sarcophagus didn't open up and the Tomb King didn't come on out, yeah, I was a little sad. It's a really cool lion manticore kind of beast, but I was expecting more from the haunted city full of treasure.
All right. Well, I will sleep soundly. You win. Top of grindable. Let's talk about one of my big wow moments. Just kind of jaw agape. The Burn. This might be my favorite music track so far.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I don't think anything in Shadowbringer so far has even come close to how much I like this track.
No, it's It's sad, it's melancholy, it has an edge of like exploration. Even though it's a vast emptiness, a desert, you always kind of wonder like, what's around the corner?
It's a full soundtrack medley because it starts extremely somber and I love it, but it gets extremely hopeful.
Yes.
Around like the 1 minute 20 mark, like that is some heroic sounding music. And then it gets right back to, I wouldn't say somber, but more serious piano melody after that. This track, it takes you on a journey much the same way the Burn does, because it is kind of gorgeous in its own weird way, while also like the whole everything you're questing through is extremely tragic.
Oh, the first boss was like a scorpion.
Yeah, which normally I'd be like, oh, I've fought a million scorpions, but it is a hide behind the column fight, which I'm a fan of.
Yeah, it was a nice little crystal scorpion. It looked in-house, it looked like it was part of the environment, which I enjoyed. You make your way into the Allagan Tech and you fight the defective drone, which is also just kind of a serviceable avoid the lanes fight.
Final Fantasy XIV uses circular arenas a lot, so I rather enjoy what I want to call like the hallway fights, and Defective Drone is one of those. I get pretty stoked. Going all the way back to the first time we saw Demon Wall. I love hallway fights in this game.
Yeah, and Demon Tome. Yeah, they're fun. It's a fun way to mix it up, and this serves well. But that surprise of the initial playthrough of making your way into the Allagan ruins and just seeing how much there was to explore. But in particular, I love the mini storyline of the giant worm that bore its way through this area. Eventually, you see possibly its corpse, certainly a giant worm out there on the horizon.
Big crate dragon Star Wars vibes.
Yeah, I like that stuff. I really like how the wildlife interacts with the environment. So our beehives from Arboreto, things being overgrown when they shouldn't be, any of that kind of Last of Us kind of stuff. Any evolutions of the space is something I get really into. I think the white sand with the Allagan Tech just looked nice together. It was a great contrast.
It's a good visual structure. Like if you think like it's very easy when we get to the Burn to just be like, oh, it's just all going to be this. Nope, you're going to descend to Allagan ruins and it's going to break up the middle section of this dungeon. And then when you get on the other side, it's going to be like, oh, you ain't seen nothing yet as far as the sandy ruins are concerned.
Honestly, I think the lamest thing about it was the Mist Dragon, but he's actually kind of hard and has sort of tough mechanics.
Kind of hard and has some cool mechanics.
Yeah.
I love the we've had a few bosses that do this kind of like, and you're in a mist, deal with that. But this one I think has one of the like just all around cooler mists, and yeah, it is cool. The dragon does seem a little out of place though. I will give you that. I was ready to fight a giant worm. Right,
he was kind of bleached, so that was kind of interesting. Way more interesting than Nevermore's bird fight with the mist. So in general, just a nice upgrade of that language. The music of the Burn just elevates this dungeon so much.
I don't know. It has some of my favorite visuals of anything I've seen in Final Fantasy XIV. I love the way the Burn looks.
Well, I've got a personal vibe for it too because I grew up in New Mexico, so White Sands National Park. You'd go sledding there. Like some of my favorite memories are in White Sands.
This is personally one of my favorite dungeons. It pains me though that I think like when in the construct of the wall, I think it might be top of banger territory.
I can feel that.
Yeah. I can't really argue with the final boss fight because I think it's solid, but I just don't love it. And it kind of detracts from the experience of the dungeon for me. It's definitely grindable. I get excited anytime this shows up in my roulette, and sadly it doesn't show up that much, at least not yet.
Doma Castle just is doing so much right. And the environment shift and that journey you go on is just a better performance than the Burn gives. It's just a higher class movie. It's got better funding. It's tough to say why the Burn is doing so much so well. I want to put it above Alamigo. That's what I want to do. I really, really like it.
It's above Alamigo for me. Yeah.
Awesome.
Like I said, it's just personally, just based off just personal feelings that I don't feel like defending. It's probably my favorite dungeon. It's up there, but analyzing it in the way we do for the wall, I don't think it's quite epic. It's damn close. Which means it's time for the Ghimlyt Dark. Similar to Alamigo, I want to go to bat for the music because it opens up with an extremely full sounding rendition of Stormblood's battle theme Triumph. You've heard this track, the entire expansion, but it has never sounded this good.
It's so filled out. Ultimately, it's just a really sad setting. Like, this is doing war-torn battlefield justice, and it's hell out there. It's got the animatronics of Mhigo, which it kind of feels upgraded. You're moving amongst the NPCs more rather than seeing them behind the glass walls. But it's not a joyous experience. Like, this is war. That aside, they're doing the gun turrets awesomely. The crashing ships, everything's exploding. It is literally hell, and they're doing it very well.
Oh yeah, 110%. This is the type of set piece I love. I never feel comfortable saying I'm a Gundam fan because there's so much, and I've only seen like a handful of series. But you know, I'm a child of the 90s and the early aughts, so I grew up with Gundam Wing when it invaded the US. And I just, God, I loved the big war episodes of anything from Gundam Wing. And it's a big reason I really like 08 MS Team. I love mechanical warfields. Just tons of broken vehicles and metal plating and just a war zone just completely strewn about with gargantuan metal viscera. I love that. Absolutely, it is. I don't think I get as bummed out by the setting as you do. It's epic as shit, man. It's like, I love it, like Hoth, like Star Wars, anything like this. Just big, messy battlefield. I'm here for it. I'm all for this kind of a thing, and this is a really well done version of that. It looks so good. The setting, the theming. Every artist who touched this deserves like a high five or fist bump, whatever they want. There's such a good fit and finish to this because it would have been so easy to just like, here's the rebel, fight the things. No, but it's not just that. In the distance, there's spotlights. There's tracer rounds of machine guns firing off. We go back to the Tibetan prayer flags and Bardam's Mettle really selling depth. Jesus, what they've accomplished here with spotlights and tracer rounds. And then on top of all of that, it's like, oh no, he's just gonna have the robot you go up and fight. No, the robot's gonna erupt out of a pile of rubble and fight you, while your allies that in Mhigo you just wave to behind the same fence you've already seen 7 times, they're gonna parachute in and fight alongside you and use limit breaks, which are actually randomized, so if you get it on more than one run, you don't see the same thing twice necessarily.
And it introduced a new mechanic for us, which was the rotating slam ability. And that was just really fun to dodge on the Mark IIIB Colossus. One of my favorite things they added here was that little splash of color of the fuel or the Magitech juices kind of flowing down the hills. It really completed an otherwise just barren wasteland.
They do a really good job of making this visually distinctive and not just looking like a big random mess of a pile.
It's also a great tour of all the Garlean tech you've seen so far. Things that used to be bosses are now trash. And instead you fight new monstrosities, like the Prometheus, giant boar machine thing.
Yeah, that fight, that to me is the low point of this dungeon. I think that fight's a little basic.
Yeah?
A little mid.
Okay. I kind of like it.
I'm weirdly into the Mark IIIB Colossus fight. I love that when it does the radial slam attack. There's something I just find so adorable about that avoid.
It's fun.
Like, it's just fun to do. Plus that mixes in some good dancing on top of that. Prometheus, I would, as a WoW player, I'm like, it's an Uberaki, but it's not as cool as other Nubarak-esque fights, including in like that kind of like burrow boss. We've seen quite a few of them in Final Fantasy XIV, and I don't think this is one of my more favorite ones.
It's a little slow. It's not doing the burrow with great speed or gusto. This, I think, is one of the best examples of linear dungeon that we've seen so far. Sometimes it can feel a little restrictive. I think Mhigo, you felt like there were streets you could go down, but that was more the NPCs doing the animatronics thing. Here, there was one very direct path, but all the parachuters and the robots joining in the Garlean tech attacking you. It directed you the right way by constantly triggering enemies, much as a lot of RPGs do, right? Are you going the right way? Are there enemies? Yes.
And then the final fight is cool. I like the, Anya and Julia like the twin Garlean fight, those color-coded guards that my entire time through Stormblood, I was just yelling, we're gonna have to fight them! We're gonna have to fight, or I guess entire time through Stormblood patch content, because I don't think they showed up in regular Stormblood. Anyway, it's very DBZ fight for me. I love that they're like literally glowing with power. And like we've done fights with Garleans before, so we see the X strikes, and there's like, hey, you like X strikes? Well, what about a bunch of X strikes that you have to avoid all at once? Like, it's very well themed, it's very well done. It's
very Power Rangers-y as they, combine their powers of friendship to dash around together and high five as they do.
Yeah, there's a lot of character, and it adds a bit. I think it adds a nice flourish of fun to the end of what is a pretty overbearing depiction of war throughout this whole dungeon. Where would you start it, Kyle?
Honestly, like I'm so cheeseball that if when it ended, like a single little flower or plant just kind of like blooped out of the ground, I'd be like, oh, everything's gonna be okay. Like I'm that kind of cheeseball person, right? Sadly, it's not gonna be okay for a long time. Where do I put it? Do I put it in grindable because it's good, and maybe I just don't want to see it? Like it just makes me sad.
I love how personally this affects you on an emotional level.
Yeah, no, this is a very emotional dungeon. So it's not lame, but I don't want to grind it. So I think I put it in banger.
I really like it. But I really like a lot of these dungeons. Like basically everything in Banger is just like I just like on a personal level I love all of this. Except maybe Alamigo, which I would say on a personal level I like it. It's only through close inspection I need to give it a few more props. I feel like if I say I want this under the burn, people are gonna come for me.
I think the burn is majestic, and I would put the burn above this. Okay, yeah. Ooh. Oh, it's got such a nice home there because it's like an evolution of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride kind of NPCs. Like they're more interactive. We get to see Yagiri like limit.
Oh yeah, no, it's straight up in that term, in terms of like going to battle with main characters from Final Fantasy XIV. Ghimlyt Dark just completely does it better than Alamigo. It's not even close. The way it's handled in Ghimlyt Dark is just infinitely better executed than Alamigo. It's nuts to think that this is within the same expansion, even though there's Ghimlyt Dark patch content, Alamigo, end of the initial launch.
It's an evolution of that system they built, and it does it better. Is it epic? It is.
I completely understand anyone that would want to throw this in epic, and I wouldn't fight you for it. But this is my list, and I just like the burn better.
I like it. Understandable epic. However, the burn. The burn. Have you heard of the burn?
Have you heard of the burn?
The burn's great. The burn is
also
great.
Can we just celebrate Doma Castle? It is such a good dungeon, and it happens so early in Stormblood.
It was needed. That was needed. We needed
that. That's
that
fair.
payoff.
That's a good point.
We needed
that's a good
that payoff.
point. I think Doma Castle will get a lot of people through Stormblood.
Yeah. If you can make it to Doma, you'll beat Stormblood.
Well, we did it.
Why are you guys so sweaty?
Look at all this room for activities, as they say, when we might add in all those hard dungeons waiting in the wings.
But hey, that comment section below is there for a reason. This is a nice even 8. What do you think, fine viewers? That's right, I'm doing it. I'm doing the thing that all YouTubers do. Comment below. I want to know your list.